Hello. Last week, I posted the second of a multi-part interview with former Scientologist Tim DeWall. In our first interview, we discussed how Tim got hooked into Scientology, and in our second, we talked about how he got onto staff at the Church of Scientology of Tampa. This week, we go over the rest of his years on staff after he was promoted to the job of Executive Director, the one who actually runs the whole organization. Knowing everything Tim has said in this interview, I want you to know that Tim's experience as a Scientology executive was not unique and different and strange. He tells it like it was, and it's not a pretty picture. Unfortunately, the kind of abuses and mismanagement that was going on then remains the same now. When I was in the Sea organization, I worked at the level of Continental Org Management for my first 8 years, and I can attest that everything Tim describes was happening in the East U.S. was also happening where I was in the West U.S. The entire tone and attitude of how the Sea organization manages the lower organizations, such as Tampa, and how they treat one another and the staff is set by the captain of the Sea Org, David Miscavige. It doesn't have to be the way that it is, and it never has had to be that way. The frantic and constant stream of orders and emergencies come from the very top and are pushed down to the lower level managers and executives, and none of them feel they have any choice but to follow their orders. Tim and his wife Sylvia got out of Scientology just last year after decades of involvement. Let's pick up now with part 3 of our interview and see what it's like to be an executive staff member for Scientology. Here's Tim. Like, what motivated you to come up with stuff like that? I mean, were there threats made of any kind? Or?
That was always the viewpoint that I was going to get in some kind of trouble. At that point, there was really no traveling back and forth to New York for anybody below the ED post or maybe the highest finance terminals. Other than that, they didn't really collect you to New York.
Okay.
I have many stories about being collected to New York as the ED.
Yes.
I will elaborate.
We'll get into that.
Oh my God, yes.
But so you were never, pulled out of the org to go to New York.
No, I was sent to Flag one time to do some kind of stupid handling on what it was to be like to be the best flag rep I could be. And I think I was there for a couple of hours, talked to this guy, wrote some reports, and went back. But it was never like really anything where I'm going to be. I got yelled at daily, screamed at, told that I wasn't really trying to get the expansion done, but there wasn't anybody who came and did a mission that was directed exactly at me. But I got threatened with ethics measures and conditions where I would be like in treason or enemy if I didn't get these targets done, but nothing where I was like gonna be hugely in trouble. It was more pressure like that.
Okay, all right. So more verbal abuse than anything else.
Quite a bit of verbal abuse.
Okay. How did you move from off the flag rep bookstore thing, and what happened, and what did you get off to?
Another mission.
Okay, some Sea Org mission came in?
Yeah.
And what did they do?
Well, they came in and they took 2 terminals, 2 people, 2 staff, and said, you're going to the International Training Organization, the ED, and the, I don't remember what the other post was. I think it was a technical post. I can't remember.
So they literally walked in and took the head of the organization and said, you're going.
Yeah, and another high-level executive. I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been the organizational executive secretary over divisions 3, 4, and 5.
Right. Okay. So one of the key, you could say, analogous to like one of the key board members or something.
Yeah, it was a couple of big people. But that person returned right away, but the ED did not. She stayed.
Okay, and by right away you mean?
Within months, that person was back. The
Okay.
ED stayed. So there was no ED. It was like being held. I don't even know who was holding it. I didn't have attention on that. I can't even remember who held it.
So there was just...
Like it was only for a few weeks. There was nobody. It was
there was
sort of
nobody
like,
running the whole organization.
Pretty much for about 2 weeks.
Wow. And then what happened?
They called me on the telephone.
Okay.
This is when I was introduced to what's called a programs chief. I didn't know what the hell that was.
Okay.
And they said, hey, we see from your statistics that you did really well in the bookstore. And I did. And I really did. I wanted the end result. I wanted that auditing. So you have to produce to get it. And then I did well. I actually got more program steps done than anybody had ever else gotten done. So I'm like the best candidate. They go, how would you like to be the temporary ED for 3 to 6 months while your ED finishes her training? She should be back in 3, maybe 4 months, 6 at the most. I said, all I got to do is sit at their desk and basically do, kind of the same thing. And yeah, you have to be what's called the product officer. You have to go around, make sure everybody does their stuff, but it's kind of the same thing as being a flag rep. You already have talked to the ED, you know kind of what that person does. How about you do that for 6 months?
And this is all a phone call.
Phone call.
The mission had already come and gone.
Mission had already come, removed the people, left, didn't really have... They had some kind of temporary person in there, and they lasted like a few days, and then there was really nobody there for I think 8 days. There really was no director, no nothing. And then I get a phone call.
When was this? About what year are we talking about now?
Let's see. I left staff in 82, so this would have... I'm sorry, 92, so this would have been about 86, 87, around 86, 87.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry, 88, 88.
That sounds better. Okay, yeah, 88.
Sorry. It's a jumble of dates.
I know,
I'm sorry.
I was just kind of curious where we were at time frame.
I'm sorry, because it was 84, and then it was about 4 years in. Yeah, it's about 88. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so this is about 1988.
Yeah.
That this is happening.
Yeah.
And so they make you the executive director of Tampa by a phone call.
Yeah, Joyce.
Joyce?
My programs chief.
Okay, so this woman named Joyce.
She calls me.
Okay, and she is your programs chief. Now, at a management organization, Sea Org, right? Joyce is a Sea Org member. Mm-hmm. The programs chief is the person who's ostensibly supposed to be seeing that the programs are getting done.
Yes.
But what they actually do is call you on the phone and harass you about your statistics.
Yes.
And where are things at, and run you because they're not good enough yet. This was my experience with being a programs chief and with watching programs chiefs and interacting with them when I was a staff member. Because this is 1988 now that we're talking about, and I was now a staff member in Santa Barbara.
Oh, yeah.
And we got phone calls every day from the programs chief.
I'm sure it came from way up all the way down to the individual.
Yeah, well, I was over in West US, right?
Yeah.
But it was the same kind of drill that was being done, right? So you're getting, you're on the East US, I'm over on the West US, but the experience is very similar. I mean, everything you've said, minus the dog food, I experienced.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So,
yeah.
So now, okay, so you get this phone call, you become the executive director, and basically what happens to your life?
I'm pretty much told right away that I need to dump my job.
Okay.
And I'm like, no, there's no damn way. Because at this point, I'm like, I have a pretty steady girlfriend, or if I'm married, I can't exactly remember all of the dates, but I'm like, yeah, I wasn't married yet. I'm like, but you have to be responsible for the organization. How it came about was, shortly after I became the temporary ED, this girl shows up out of the blue. Don't even know who the hell it is. She's from the Commodore's messenger work.
Oh, okay.
Way up in nosebleed territory. Shit I'm not even really familiar with.
Yeah.
And she comes in, she goes to the LRH office. You're supposed to have an office for him in case he returns, and it has to be immaculate, can't have any dust. And there's dust. I guess she's some kind of person who checks for dust in LRH's office because he's dead, but he's going to come back and do something. I don't really know. I didn't really give a shit. I was busy.
This is 2 years after Hubbard died.
Yeah.
Right.
I was pretty busy.
Yeah.
So she comes in, and she gives me all this crap about not being respectful and how the LRH office is dirty and how I have a job. And she tells me immediately that I have to quit my job and that my folders are going to be taken to flag, or there's going to be some kind of reprimand because I'm not booming my org. And I'm like, I've been on this post like 4 months, maybe 2 months. I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm the temporary person.
Right.
So I didn't really respect her very well. She storms out making all these threats that I'm going to be, removed. And I'm like thinking, yeah, okay, whatever, bitch. See ya. And sent her packing.
Yeah.
So, and then shortly after that, then I get my first trip to New York.
Right.
Not as a result of her, but possibly, who knows?
I'm quite sure she had something to do with it.
Who knows?
Yeah.
So I get sent to New York to find out what an ED is supposed to be, because I guess I was really I had a clipboard. I was responsible for these particular statistics throughout these divisions, and that's what I did. I just went around and chewed everybody's ass until they did what I told them to do.
Wow. And about how many staff were there in Tampa at this point under you?
Christ, maybe 17, 18 at the most.
Okay. And so you pretty much figured that your job was to
chew their ass,
go around and
I was vicious.
Dish out abuse on them.
I was given a sort of a crash course, and I'll get into that. It's a separate question, but when I first started, I just went around like a drill sergeant and just chewed everybody's ass because I was getting my ass chewed, so I just brought it through.
I was going to ask about that. Is that kind of why you had that idea?
From day one, I got my ass chewed.
Okay.
There wasn't
Joyce,
anybody.
The program's chief?
Joyce, the CO, anybody who would get on the phone with me would chew my ass because, the organization was in shambles. The ED was gone. I'm the new ED. Statistics across every division were in horrible shape. There wasn't anything working properly. There wasn't anybody really running the organization, and that's why they had dragged her out and sent her to the international training organization so she could become a better ED.
Right.
So they put me in there like as a pit bull because I guess somebody had sent up the lines, the whole he's a dick and he'll get people to do things.
Right.
They kind of wanted an asshole in there who would not be scared to go, and the whole line was to get these people operating above their reactive minds or their banks.
Right.
I could put more pressure on them than their actual reactive mind. That was told to me, I don't even know how many times, to the point where it was insane, that I had to go in there and put more pressure on them than their bank. That was one of the main I don't know if that happened to you, but that was one of the main communication lines that was given to me.
That's a very interesting
It used to drive
point.
me nuts.
No, it's a very interesting point. It's directly out of a policy letter that was written by L. Ron Hubbard.
Yeah.
That's where they got that from. They didn't make that up. And in fact, it's from one of the policies about how to be an executive.
Oh, yeah. It was crazy.
It's called, the name of the policy letter, I believe, is called A Model Hat for an Executive.
Yeah.
Which is a 3 or 4 page issue that describes Hubbard's operating guidelines for being an executive.
Oh, yeah.
And that is one of the points.
It was pounded to me.
Right, because now what we're talking about is Hubbard presents the idea that your reactive mind or your bank is some part of your mind that exerts pressure on a person internally to slack off, not do things, not be productive, basically do bad things. And so the theory here is that an executive will bring more pressure on the person externally than their mind is bringing on them internally.
Yes.
And so the threat from the exterior is harsher than the threat interior, right, from their mind. And so that makes them motivated to work and do what you're telling them to do.
Oh, yeah.
This is totally pain, punishment, drive, motivation. And it's right out of Hubbard's policy, which is why I'm taking the moment to talk about it.
Yeah. I was a heat-sinking missile.
Yeah, I get it.
I didn't.
You were being directed to do that.
I didn't care.
Right. Interesting. So I'm curious, if you had been directed differently, would you have acted differently, do you think?
Definitely, because one of the first early deals was I was on this job of temporary executive director for about 4 months before I really even got much training to be it. And I got pulled, was my first airplane ride from Tampa to New York. There were many that came afterwards.
Yes.
Many.
So, okay, but...
I didn't really know how to do it.
Well, no, that's fascinating. So you're basically thrown in...
Yes.
Just run this organization.
I was given
no training. You don't have an MBA.
I was given a full hat, like the big old fat, really big fat ED hat, which I was like, I hadn't even finished some of the earlier stuff you're supposed to do before you take that job.
Right.
There's executive statuses that you're supposed to, above and beyond the staff statuses.
Right.
I didn't do any of those.
Were you ever told to just make it go right?
Oh, many times.
Okay, I'm just curious.
Stay as late as... Don't go home until you get this done.
What else were you told? Let's look into this for a second.
Don't go home until this is done. You need to get 8 people in. It's like a Sunday at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That ain't gonna happen.
Okay, meaning new people in
new
Scientology.
People have to be signed up. Yeah.
Okay, so you're supposed to personally make sure that 8 people...
Oh yeah, or like you have to get a certain number of promotional pieces out at an event, or you have to have there was all kinds of things like that every day. Or there was a product or a statistic called well done auditing hours. Somehow organizations were really run on that, although we were supposed to get training because training is what made all the orgs grow, but yet this processing costs a lot of money. So we were always pounded on these well-done auditing hours.
Yeah.
Because that brought in income. It took me a long time to figure that out. And then it went off in my head. No, this shows them money. This shows them gross income. So I was pounded on that. And I would be like, Wednesday night, because Thursday at 2 is the last day. It runs Thursday to Thursday.
Yeah.
And I would have to get those hours from like, if they were at 10 to like, the auditor would have to stay up all night, and so would the person getting the auditing.
Did you actually have
questions
that happen?
Like that? No, we never. You weren't supposed to.
Anybody up all night.
I never did it because it's after 10 o'clock, and you're not supposed to do that.
Right.
So I kind of held the line there. But it's just, well, could they come in at 9 in the morning? Well, if they get sleep, they could be up at 7, be at the organization at 8. You can get the auditor to come in at 8 o'clock, and that's 4 hours. You can take them in until 1. You would make your target.
Right.
Stuff like that. Just workouts. Like, what was funny is I never really understood until the programs chief, I never really understood until I went to go visit that they have a mirror image of your organization written down in front of them, and that's what they run from. They know that you have 4 people in, or they know that you have 12 hours. They know they have a mirror image of your statistics that are routinely turned in daily so they can program you to get these targets done.
And that is the very definition of micromanagement.
It's the very definition of chaos. It's the very definition. It's the very definition of what we refer to in Scientology as a bypass.
Right.
It's like basically having their hand up your ass and running you.
Right.
To be honest.
Right.
I'm sorry. I might be crude here. But
no, I appreciate it.
I ran a tough post, and I was a hardcore guy. Ask any of my staff if that will still talk to me, that's none of them. They knew I was going to get it done.
And that was standard operating procedure for management of all Scientology organizations. Then and now. I mean, and which is fascinating because you wonder how you can have thousands of Sea Org members working so hard, slavish conditions, working their asses off, because as hard as you were getting it, now, those Sea Org members were getting it 20 times harder.
Oh, they were.
Right? They were just, because this was their, at least you had a home to go to and some respite every now and again, and you could actually, on a Saturday night, go see a movie or something. These schleps are up there in New York 24/7. doing this
if they
and
weren't
raining abuse down on staff.
Right. If they weren't working on their own post, they were doing renovations to the organization.
Right.
Yeah, I became friends with several of them, and because I got to visit there a lot after a while.
Let's talk about that.
I got in trouble a lot.
Yeah. So this is sort of the abusive work conditions that are going on for you as the head of this organization. Did you realize at this point that your predecessor had also been experiencing all of this?
My predecessor was a very nice lady. She was. She didn't really have the fire to get things done. She was more of a program-oriented, sort of a revamped kind of hippie lady.
Okay.
It was very nice. Can't say anything bad about her. But she was more interested in the betterment of people.
And this was the one they sent off to LA for training.
Yeah, she went to training, came back. I took her job. She never returned to the job.
Oh, okay. She never did go back on as the executive director.
No, she went on as a tech terminal and then became a public and went on from there, and she's passed away now. She's gone. She's no longer here.
So she must have, her temperament really didn't fit for this situation.
No, she was constantly upset. She kind of was teary. She didn't really know how to be militant. It was kind of a militant situation. It was kind of a, let's say, you'll be familiar with this, very much a do or die kind of situation.
Yes, very much
It wasn't like, you never filtered that. I mean, you never didn't filter that down to a public, but you never put that on a public person. But a lot of closed door meetings, a lot of door slamming, a lot of use of language.
Yeah.
Language was it ain't the Presbyterian Church.
Right.
It's like, motherfucker, get that done.
Right. And this was all a pattern of operation that was being rained down on your head, and you're passing it on to your staff.
Yeah, it was RMFR. Run, motherfucker, run.
Wow. Okay. Wasn't familiar with that one over in West US.
Yeah, we had that in the East US. It was RMFR.
Got it. Okay, that's a new one on me.
Yeah.
So you go up to, so let's talk about your first trip to New York, just to kind of get, what was it like getting your feet wet there? What was the dip? What was that, like an ice water dip or what?
It was very much an ice water dip. I flew from Tampa into Newark Airport, took the bus to the Port Authority, walked, because no one met me,
of course not.
to Hell's Kitchen, 46th Street, where the East US org was. And I'm walking in, get met by the receptionist, and given a routing form. I'm thinking, I'm not a public. No, you have to route into the organization because you'll have to route out. I'm like, look, I'm here 48 hours.
And a routing form is basically a piece of paper that takes you from one person to the next and describes in detail what each person is supposed to do with you, so that by the end of the routing form, you have completed whatever it is you're there for.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I'm there about 16, maybe 17 minutes, and I'm already getting my ass chewed.
Okay. Who by who, and what happened?
I was chewed up by an ethics terminal there, an HCO terminal, because I'm standing in the hallway, waiting to get into, because the organization has to pay for this. When you go up lines, you have to sign in, and there has to be.
Oh, so you're having to pay money.
Right, you have to go up the lines. You have to give up. So I have to sign into Treasury or whatever, and I don't remember all the different routing in, and I'm there and I'm talking to a Sea Org member, and we're having a conversation about hey, you're the new ED, and I'm thinking we're just kind of talking back and forth. This is kind of cool, and a Sea Org member, a lady, a woman, walks out, and she walks past me, stares at me, and the ethics person says, "What did she want?" I said, "I don't know what that lady wanted." And his eyes got about this big. "You will refer to her as sir. The next words out of your mouth will be sir." I'm like, she's a lady. Okay, do you want to be in trouble? Do you want to start your career here? I mean, this guy chewed my ass for calling a woman a lady.
Right.
I didn't give a shit. I'm getting phone calls when I'm the flag rep, or I'm getting visits when I'm the bookstore officer from these guys in uniform. They don't chew, they're not, it's not like I'm in front of them. So I'm kind of nonchalant. I called her a lady. I got my ass chewed
Right.
to a nub. I mean, maybe 15 minutes of being screamed at. And I'm like, okay, I guess he wants me to call her sir. I thought it was fucking retarded.
That's the C word.
I'm sorry. I just thought it was the dumbest fucking thing ever.
Right. Did you ever find out who she was?
I think she was some finance terminal.
Okay.
I don't even remember, or an LRH com or something. I don't know who it was.
All right. So then what happened?
So then I'm immediately sent into the course room, and I'm given three policies, and they're all product officer policies. George Thunderbird.
Oh, right. You there, George Thunderbird.
Yeah.
Right. So this is a policy letter called
Name,
product
want, and get.
officers.
Name,
Yes,
want, and get.
that's right.
And then 40 was about being an ass, basically.
Right. And the policies all describe from Hubbard how to push, debug, drive, how to
Yes.
basically push people hard to get things done.
Right.
And he describes it in detail with actual quotes.
Oh, yeah.
Right,
Then
which is where the George Thunderbird comes from. He
Yes.
says he gives an example of a product officer walking into an area of the organization.
Fire breather.
That's right. And what does he say?
Basically, you're just a fire-breathing, just hardcore machine. You're just like your name, want, and get. We'd rather have you dead than incapable.
Right.
Stuff like that. I mean, just intense. Because everything you do is about getting that production.
Right.
And when you're up there and you're an ED, I never likened myself or called myself a C organization member, but when you're in the CLO, they don't treat you as though you're Joe Public.
Right.
You're the same as them on getting a product. You're in the trenches, you're getting the orders from upper management that get them from Miscavige and all the way up to nosebleed territory, and you're to get it done.
Right.
It was a whole different experience than being in my little organization there and getting a phone call every now and again, or a mission would come in for 2 days and someone would yell and then they'd leave.
Right. Now you're actually in the heart of it.
Now I've got 20-some Sea Org members all yelling at each other and yelling at me.
Wow.
There was a lot of yelling at my first trip.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's walk through it a little bit more. So you get these issues, read them, and then did you meet your programs chief? Or
I met my programs chief, and I met the other programs chief. I met like 2 or 3 programs chief. My programs chief was actually pretty cool with me. She was like okay with me. She really took the time to understand who I was, asked me where I was from, allowed me to speak a lot more freely than anyone else. I think she was really trying to establish who I was.
Yeah.
She was still all about being hardcore and getting me to be hardcore, but she was at least a lot more real than anybody else.
Yeah.
I met a lot of the ethics terminals, and I met somebody pretty high up in HCO who, she was kind of cute. She kind of took a little bit of a liking to me, and I took a little bit of a liking to her, and we were a little long during a conversation, and her husband came knocking at the door and wanted her to go to chow, and she reprimanded him severely about how she was in the middle of a cycle.
I see.
I think she was in the middle of thinking that I was good looking and she wanted to talk to me.
I see.
But it was okay. I wasn't trying to be arrogant, but it was just I got a flow but it wasn't like nothing happened.
Yeah.
But it was just like, you could kind of tell there was a little bit of likingness there, and he didn't like it. But that was the first time that I ever seen really like a woman scream at a man terminal, and it didn't seem to be about the organization.
Okay.
It's a little bit, it always kind of stuck with me throughout my years. But she was the person that I had to do the final drill with on how to be sort of hardcore. It wasn't my program's chief. It was this woman here, and I don't remember her name and her post, or if she's even in, but she was like, you have to be more ruthless than their reactive mind. You have to get those people to literally work their guts out, get that product, do this for LRH. There was a lot of do it for LRH.
I see.
And I couldn't go out of her area until I passed that drill on those product officer beat.
Okay.
Because that's really what they wanted out of me. There wasn't really a whole lot of other training.
Right. Okay, I get it. So the whole point of getting you up there was to get your face rubbed in how to be a ruthless prick, basically, as an executive director.
Oh, absolutely.
So you could run these people the way they thought you were supposed to, because that was how they were being run.
Absolutely.
So that you would go down into Tampa and do like they do and get people to, jump when you say jump and get their products done, because those graphs were pathetic.
Yes.
You weren't getting new majors, you weren't getting enough bodies in the shop, you weren't getting enough hours.
Oh, yeah.
And the way to handle that was to yell and scream and be more ruthless with them, or put more pressure on them than their reactive mind was putting on them.
There was very little tact involved in it in terms of building relationships in the organization.
Right.
It was like there wasn't enough time to do that. Could I say that everyone I met at the C organization at the East US was mean to me or talked to me to be like completely mean? No. Actually, there was some pretty nice folks there, but it was all bent on how can I apply more pressure than their reactive mind, because yes, Tampa orgs statistics are horrible. And I was always being compared to, look, you're right next to Flag. You're right next to Clearwater Mission. You're right next to the Mecca. You should be able to work with all of these terminals, even though they have their public and whatever. You should be booming. You're in the Scientology Central.
Right.
You should be a bright, shining star for the Eastern United States organizations, so we can be the best, so we can beat other organizations like the Western United States.
Right.
And I got that told to me a lot of times.
It's a funny and so almost zombie-like simplicity of thinking.
Yes.
That you're supposed to, because you're right next to the largest organization in the world, through some kind of osmosis, you're supposed to also be large.
Well, but
they're not connected really in any way, except that you're getting their rejects.
Right. They were very aware of the reject line, and that they actually helped me work that line.
Right.
Because they knew they cannot take certain people. So,
well, it's so funny, though.
And there's nobody coming through the door, so where's your public coming from?
Well, that's my point, is, were you given any direction or any positive training in the direction of how to get new people in, or how to get promotion and marketing done that would actually draw people in to Dianetics and Scientology?
No,
was there any effort made in that direction?
Standard lines.
Standard, what does that mean?
Chewed my ass for not making, because the magazine wouldn't go out. Had to go out on time, had to go there. Eventually, if you're probably familiar with this, that the C organizations took over the magazines for the orgs.
Yes.
Because we were too incapable of getting it done.
Right.
We'd have typos or errors or whatever, or would go out late, or there would be a skipped month because you had to pay the bills.
Right, you didn't have the money for the magazine.
Right.
Yeah.
So...
But was there any sort of like, okay, you don't have the money for the magazine, so the handling for that was to chew your ass about that. Was there any like, okay, well, we know you don't have the money for that, so do this instead?
No, I came up with something.
Okay.
I went completely off of Hubbard's policies per what you were supposed to do, and I came up with a very small, simple, easily readable newsletter.
Okay.
That I put wins of PCs, wins in the course room, what we were doing at Tampa, and I called it something I can't remember, and I sent it out once a month And I actually got more from that little piece of paper than I ever did from one of the flag-driven magazines.
Well, that's just so shocking to me. I just can't even believe that.
Yeah, I did that, and there's an interesting story. I got in a lot of trouble doing that.
I'll bet you did.
Yeah, we would get the rejects, and a girl actually said that we straightened out her case or her problems in life better than the flag organization did, and I printed that.
And you got in a lot of trouble for that?
I was immediately sent to flag.
Okay.
I got pulled into an office by two very high-level uniform-wearing executives and got my ass chewed to a nub to the point where I was going to be commented.
Wow. So you were going to face justice because some woman
I was going to face, because I did,
and liked
I
it.
did, quote-unquote, a fuck job on flag.
Right.
Yeah, I got my ass chewed. Then I called my program chief, told her what happened, and she said, it was very weird. She goes, "Is the story true?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Well, you printed it. It was true. Live with it. Handle it."
Right.
She didn't have time for it.
Right.
She was nice about it, but she said, "You handle it."
Right.
So I just took an ass chewing.
All right. So you had an eval which said that the reason your Tampa org was not expanding and flourishing was because you had a different job.
Yeah, I had a part-time job. I worked at a department store, and I had, at that point, 2 small children and a wife. And I had to pay rent, and I had to live, and I had to eat, and I was still supporting the other staff member.
The auditor.
Right.
All this time.
Pretty much from the time I walked in, yeah. He had some of his own money, but I would pretty much help him, yes.
Wow.
He was my best friend on staff. Won't talk to me now, but that's okay.
Okay.
But
so you had this job, and so this eval comes down, and it says that this is the why for the org not expanding.
Yes, I was the why, and the other situation is the who is an actual named post or person.
Yeah.
And that was my public executive director.
Yeah.
And it was due to his unethical behavior. He had a little trouble with women.
I see.
He was hitting on some of the girls who were coming in. He
I
actually
see.
ended up dating one of them and having sex with them. And he just was kind of nice guy, but didn't really wear his post real well.
Got it. Okay. And this was the reason why the org was not expanding and flourishing.
Right, because he was on that particular job and no one was coming through the door. Somehow he was blocking the expansion of new people. Nonetheless, it really was, all we were really doing was eating up the people over and over and over that we actually had in the organization, like every organization in Scientology does.
Yeah, there's this funny idea in policy that you know, people are hungry for Dianetics and Scientology, and if they're not coming in droves, I think Hubbard says, then somehow you're stopping them from coming in. And you sort of get this idea, well, maybe if we just didn't have anybody down there at all, you know, to receive them, then they'd just come flooding in because nobody would be stopping them.
Right.
Is the kind of this like, weird idea you get, you know?
It was a very weird idea because in the same vein of thought, you're being pummeled by your programs chief to get them to move over from coming in to being called what's a major service so they can go into the chaos of being regged and communicated to and told to buy this and go here and do this and that.
That's right.
To where they get a hunted feeling.
Exactly. So, all right, so what happened after this eval came down?
Comes down, it's on it's on the goldenrod paper. I'm really in trouble.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a big to-do. It's posted by HCO, and there's talk of me, not necessarily getting replaced, but getting some type of justice action.
Wow, because you've been having this other job to support yourself.
And I was a little bit tough with some of the upper management people.
Right.
So nothing happens for a couple of days. And it was funny, in the office I was in, is I had my executive director office, and next to me was the head of finance, the flag banking officer.
Yeah.
He was also our registrar, if you want to talk about crossing lines.
Yeah, exactly.
Strange. But he was the best one for the job. There was a glass panel window that we used to slide back and forth. I don't know why it was there, but it was really good because he and I wouldn't have to walk around to our offices to talk. We would just slide the window open. His desk was closed. So whenever he'd get a call from his senior, hush, hush, you'd see the panel go closed.
Oh, I see.
Well, he's on the phone for a half hour. And he says, hey, you're going to get a call in about 4 minutes from somebody, and you need to just, you need to be cool and just talk to them. So I get this call, and I'm getting kind of yelled at by this person. I don't know who it is. It's not my senior. It's not even somebody at the East US. It's somebody up in Los Angeles or somewhere. I have no idea.
And you didn't even know, they didn't identify themselves?
No.
Wow. Okay.
So this person gets their ass chewed by me. I said, I don't know who in the fuck wrote this giant piece of shit, but I've had this job all the way back to the day that I basically started staff. I've gone to New York, come back, missed days of work. I am providing for my family. I'm making enough money between this job and that. It does not have anything to do with the expansion of this organization. This is bullshit and it needs to be fixed. Go fuck yourself. And I hung up the phone.
Wow.
So I look over, and the flag banking officer's face, his eyes are like this big, his face is red, and he's like, you're gonna die. You're going to fucking die. You need to run. I'm like, whatever, dude. So about 10 minutes later, my program chief calls me. She goes, do you know who you just spoke to? No. They didn't tell me. She goes, yeah, that was Edian's wife. I was like, okay. She says, she's going to call you back, and you're not to use that language with her again, ever. So 15 minutes later, she calls back. She's really nice. I'm really nice. And the first thing she says to me, it was really funny. She goes, I see that you really care about your organization. And that was the first time that I was ever really, outside of the CO at East US, ever truly acknowledged for being an executive. And she said, I'm going to get rid of it. It no longer exists. Send all the copies and send them back. And it no longer is, it was illegally done. It was done wrong. It was done and it was bounced between terminals. There wasn't a full evaluation, and it's just gone.
Wow.
And I was like, that's the only time that I ever felt like that I was acknowledged by management other than to just go get it done.
Fascinating.
It was really weird.
Well, and interesting to me because you just didn't back down.
No, I just didn't give a shit. I was like, I'm in trouble. I have this yellow piece. You're never supposed to get a yellow piece of paper, Chris.
That's right.
I probably have one now, but you are never, ever supposed to get one of those goldenrod pieces of paper.
That's right. And you had one.
It had my name in capital letters at the top of it.
Right.
Well, you know, the who and the why, they're listed right at the top.
That's right. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
And it was on a bulletin board where all of my staff could see it. And I'm thinking, this does not make sense.
Right. Because you're being called on the carpet in front of everybody.
The people I'm supposed to then pick up...
Right. Yeah, you're supposed to go run these people, and now they're not going to respect you.
Right. So I'm going, this makes no sense.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, within a couple of days, it was cleared up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That is actually a very interesting story.
Yep.
So, okay, so that happened with that eval. So, How did you? I mean, I'm sure there were a lot of other interesting stories like that. During
Yeah, I
your
was
time.
sent. Let's just say I was sent to New York a few times for insubordination and given handlings. Yes.
Right. Okay. And how did you ended up doing this for about 2 years, and then or so, right? And then
I
about
was the
92
ED.
or so.
Yeah, I was the ED from about 88 to 92.
Okay, about 4 years.
Joined staff at I joined staff in 84, and then after I left in 92, I stayed on for about 6 months being sort of a public staff helper.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. So,
Yeah.
how did you transition from staff to public? Let's how did this glorious career of insubordination come to an end?
I was tired. I was sleeping 3 and 4 hours a night. I'd used my own income to pay for services to boost the work statistics.
Okay.
I bought 2 intensives at the 12.5-hour period of auditing at the total of $4,000.
Of your own money.
Of my own money.
And harken back for just a moment here. The fact that you were promised when you first signed up, the reason you signed up in the first place
Free.
is how'd you like to get free services.
Yeah. And I can't say that I didn't get auditing and I didn't get things done, but again, it wasn't like I was treated like a public. A lot of my auditing was to clean the week off so I could go and do it again.
Right.
It wasn't like I was getting services or getting any closer to clear.
Right.
So
and that is unfortunately, from my experience, so common for staff members.
Very much so.
You can end up, coming off of staff with, I think we mentioned you had 30 folders. I had 50.
Yeah.
Right, coming out of the Sea Org, 56 or something. You come out of an experience like that. You've really, for all that auditing, all those pieces of paper with all that writing on it, you haven't made any real forward progress in Scientology.
No, I was not very close to clear, let's tell you that.
Yeah, exactly.
But towards the end there, I knew I wasn't going to make it anymore. There was a big push for the highest level of the auditing side of the bridge to become executive directors throughout all of the organizations, and that would be an operating Phaeton 8, OT8.
Got it. They were in a big push to get OT8.
Huge push. There was like, these are the people who were going to boom the org because the rest of you aren't OT enough. Whichever.
Right.
Yeah. I met some of those people. They wouldn't the last 15 minutes on my post.
Right.
I can give you some names, but you know, and I chewed a few of their asses too.
Okay.
When they told me how I should structure my org, so I said my main thing back in those days were, before you get yourself in trouble communicating to me, sign this piece of paper.
Right.
And not one of them did it.
Right.
So they're going to have this person come in and be an OT8 executive director, and finally Tampa Org's going to be put on the map, and it's going to be all straightened out, and you guys that didn't get it done are going to get it done because we're going to have this clean, pure management from international management all the way into this, OT8 person who's going to make this org just boom.
Okay.
So
then what happened?
at that point then,
You were basically replaced.
I'm basically being replaced. I know I'm being replaced. I'm kind of asking to be replaced, to be honest. And when you leave staff, you're supposed to replace yourself. Well, I had a replacement, but yet there was also the post that I was holding from above, which was the deputy executive director.
Okay.
And the deputy executive director is basically the product officer. Yeah. Really, the executive director is more the tactical person. He is going to push his staff, but he's going to get these programs done, and he's going to build his organization. His little heat-sinking missile, his guy in charge of all the call-in to get people to do things, is the DED. I was both posts. I actually had a thing called phone hat that I came up with. I would go at musters, and I'd say, this is a phone. This is where you dial it. Call these people, and they will come in. That's your fucking job. This is phone hat. And then I would slam the phone down.
Wow.
For a dramatization.
Wow.
and to get people on the phones.
Yeah.
Because people didn't generally want to actually have to call staff and do all of these things, you know. Some of them you'd find off in back lines kind of like filling out reports because they didn't really want to have to confront you much.
Right.
But I came up with phone hat. I came up with a lot of different things that I probably shouldn't have, but I did. But so I have to do what's called a security check to leave because I'm leaving staff and I have to replace the DED post. Well, I don't have anybody. So I send up the lines, hey, you're providing me this person. I just want to go. I want to be a public. No, you're a bad guy. You know, you're not getting your post replaced. And I'm like, okay, here's what I'll do. I'll go ahead and I'll do the security check so you know that I'm not a bad guy and I want to leave because I've done something wrong. And you can't salvage me because I have all these bad overts and things that I've done to the organization. That's the only reason I'd want to leave, other than I'm sleeping 3 hours a night. I don't see my kids who are like 5 and 3. You know, I'd like to see my children before they're like 10. And because kids were like, well, you can always father them later. You can always take care of them later. They're big beings. They'll figure out what you're trying to do, save the planet.
Wow.
So I do the security check, and I get all through the whole thing, and it comes back and it gets declined because the person that I had been providing all this money to and had been my friend for many, many years isn't also completely sold on having the new ED.
I see.
Like, okay, she's OT8. Well, Tim's the ED. He wanted me to be the ED because I guarantee if I wasn't, he was going to be next.
I see.
And he could probably get more products than she could.
I see.
So
they say, no, big disapproved on the security check.
Huge disapproval.
Okay, so now what?
So now the folders all have to be re-CS'd, and they want me to pay for CSing. I think I did pay for an hour or two. I can't exactly remember, but there was always something going on. So we got the CSing done, and I went in, and I did like another 12 and a half, 13, 15 hours. I come out, I'm all shiny. Same auditor, because I said, this is my auditor. He's been my auditor since I walked in the work. I'm not having anybody else audit me. If you want me to do this, I'll do this, but I'm not going to.
Okay.
Unless it's my friend. Yeah. So he audits me, they clean it up, they approve it, but yet I don't have a replacement for the DED post.
So what happened?
So they said, you don't have to sign another contract. We know you're above and beyond your 2.5 years. But can you just stay on and while this transition happens? Well, during that time, the Sea Org comes in because what is there? My program's chief there. There's people from Flag. There's an influx of public to meet the new ED. It was a big party. Okay. Basically, it was a big recruitment party.
I see.
So I'm being told, well, I have to remain as the DED or take another high-level post so we can steal some people and put them into the Sea organization. This was supposed to be about putting the new ED on post.
And this is all at this party? This
is all at this party. My program's chief is there. She's laying it on heavy to me to not leave, sign another 2.5-year contract, be the heat-sinking missile, because the OTA could be the tactical person who could not yell at anybody, be really nice, and I could be the fucking hammer.
Right.
Because that's what my job was.
Right.
So I'm like, no, I'm tired. I like you. You're a nice person. She was actually okay. She and I had a rapport. We fought, but I actually got to know her, and it was good. It was good. But I just didn't want to stay on staff, so I did this bullshit patch where I said I'll stay for 8 months, and you better find somebody because I'm leaving. Well, I lasted about 6 months.
Okay, and then
I couldn't do it. I couldn't go on and go. And at the end of that 6 months, I stopped going to meetings. I stopped being there. I just kind of dwindled away, and I was a giant piece of. I could feel the giant piece of turd flow from everybody because I was their guy. You know, I was their buddy. I was the guy they knew. Yeah, he's going to yell at me, but he's going to give me a fair shake if I get something done. I never killed anybody, but I I definitely let them know who I was.
Yeah.
So I remember going to this big party, and it was kind of like, it was about 6 months after that. It kind of took about a year to about a year before I was really accepted as like, I didn't get this, oh, it's so weird to see you sitting in the courtroom as a public.
Yeah.
Or, are we supposed to reg you now? Or,
Right.
And I would have staff members call me and talk to me about what was going on at the organization, and I'd be like, guys, it's not my problem.
Right.
I can't help you with your upper level terminals who are chewing your ass.
Right.
Or that you think your CO is not tough enough.
Interesting.
Oh yeah.
Interesting. So, okay. So that's basically how you transitioned out.
I left, yeah.
So, long story short, I mean, we've covered a lot of territory. So what would you say was the end result of that whole experience? I mean, you spent 8 years?
About 8.5 years.
Yeah.
Almost 9. Yeah, about almost 9, like 8, almost 9 years on staff.
Was there any real change in the organization during that time?
I can't say it didn't grow. By the time that I was done, I had risen the staff up from about 20, maybe 18 to like 30, 35.
Mm-hmm.
We were dead flat along most of the statistics.
What would you say if you were going to look at what was wrong with that picture at an org level, a management level, at the whole thing, right? You have the public Scientology experience, right? You're public, you pay for services, you go up the bridge, and you go up to OT, and that's what you do, right? You pay all this money, and that's the public experience. But the staff experience is a little bit different. You get to peek behind the curtain a bit. You get to see what's going on as far as how it's really run, how these Sea Org members who are supposed to be the elite core embodiment of Scientology principles, you see how they act on a day-to-day basis. So if you were going to look at all of that picture, I mean, I've done a whole video analyzing this whole picture from my perspective and what I thought was wrong with the whole thing. What's your takeaway on it? Why do you think they're so, what do you see there?
There's a couple of things. I think one of the biggest things is something I got in trouble for again.
Mm-hmm.
I was really harping on the fact of how the mission lines worked, how the flow of public worked into Tampa, and how the flow of public worked into the flag organization.
Okay. And just to clarify something, by missions on this one, you mean the missions like the lower level churches?
Yeah, the lower level churches around us.
Missions.
Yeah, around
okay.
Like the smaller organizations that don't offer as many services as like the Class 5 or standard Church of Scientology.
Yeah.
And I thought one of the big problems is that they all had their own little lines where they would skip the organization, the Class 5 organization, because they were impartial. They weren't impartial to our tech wasn't good enough. We were always having to defend our tech because who do you have next to you?
Yeah, your flag.
So,
in other words, your tech mean, in other words, your quality.
Right.
The quality of your product.
Right. And so, these missions would get, there's a certain number of people in, or doctors or whatever, and they were usually a little classier, cleaner organizations, and they would send them directly off to the flag, the Mecca, where they could charge more money, Scientology could make more money, and these people were getting so-called better technology. And I mentioned that at a flag meeting with a bunch of flag executives and people from missions, and I also upbraided the SMI int, one of the SMI terminals at a ED conference. He was there.
Okay, and SMI is Scientology Missions International.
Right.
Is that part of management that actually runs these missions?
Yes.
Right. You had a programs chief running your org. SMI runs the missions.
Yeah.
Okay, so you upgraded a SMI person.
I took his ass out into the lobby and I chewed his ass.
Really?
I said, look, you know what's going on. You know the Clearwater mission. You know these other missions are sending people directly to flag. What happened with them sending them to an org? Why are you not being on policy?
Wow.
Yeah, he was not happy.
I'll bet he wasn't.
He went to my program's chief and she yelled at me.
Yeah, of course
She
did.
said, don't talk to him again like that.
Right.
Um,
You don't get to utter your opinion
no.
and
No.
voice legitimate concerns.
I wouldn't
to
do that
Sea
now. I
Org
wouldn't do
members.
that in this day and age with the Sea Org.
Right.
Especially a fellow like Miscavige or something like that. That'd be bad.
Right.
But that was one of the situations that was happening around the Tampa org. But I expelled on that idea because, when you live there, you're looking for solutions. It's not in all of the admin like it's said. I don't care. There's some good and bright ideas in there. There's some tried and true stuff. I guarantee some of that stuff probably works in the admin books.
Mm-hmm.
But all jumbled up, the way it's set up, it ain't going to work. So I also went to another flag meeting where I told several people, I said, you know what the problem is with Scientology? You know what the problem is with Scientology booming and getting bigger? Is that there is no more Division 6. There is no new people coming into this organization for whatever reason. I was not looking at the internet. I was not talking to SPs. I was not saying anything other than what I had witnessed in my own organization, is that you're not going to get hundreds and thousands of people to drive into the organizations, selling books at county fairs, flea markets, and having a few Division 6 personnel, hopefully getting one or two people in a week.
Right.
And if that's happening across all of Scientology at every level, then there's no new people. And all we're doing is regurgitating the same people, selling them the same shit, making them buy the same stuff over and over. And I said, that's what's wrong with Scientology.
And you said all that back in the early 90s.
Yes.
And
I
what
said
you're
that.
talking about is exactly true today.
Yeah, I told them that.
Yeah.
And that was not well received at a flag meeting.
Right.
It was one guy said, I said, why are you here? What is it that you're doing? And he got really pissed at me, and he was just all about how he's here to help LRH get people into Scientology and do all these things. And I'm like, then why are there not more people in organizations? Why? And then I started to witness the International Association of Scientologists start to bypass and bail out orgs in terms of promotion. In terms of, like, they would set up...
Bail out orgs?
Not like bail them out, but if you don't have any money for promotion and you have to rely on the International Association of Scientologists to put a commercial on in your area to drive people in, that's not what the purpose of that was about.
Mm-hmm.
No, we were being bailed out on the management level,
right,
if we couldn't pay our bills. But
right.
I just started seeing the International Association and their public relations machine and them buying big ads and things, trying to drive hordes and hordes of people in because the general local organizations weren't getting it done. And I said, that's not how you do it.
Right.
How you got all those people to see Hubbard was a grassroots viewpoint. They went out and they sold books. They went door to door. They were like doing it. They weren't relying on orders from internet. There was no international management, basically.
You're talking about back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day.
Yeah.
But, it's like, my thing was, there's nobody coming in the doors. And when they do come in the doors, they're not staying. That's the problem with Scientology.
Yeah.
And I voiced that. I wrote that up. I sent that up to the CLO. I never got an answer on it.
Did you ever think that the way the organization was run or how you were being directed to run had something to do with that?
I think it had something to do with it because how we were being run wasn't necessarily like Division 6 driven. One of the things that I always tried to do was promo. Mm-hmm. And people would get so discouraged. Like, they're throwing it on the ground. I said, I don't care. You're putting it in their hand. You're saying the church's name. That guy's not coming in, but maybe two other people will. And because we were next to Tampa Bay where the Buccaneers played, we would do promo. And that's how we survived. We would put heavy emphasis on Division 6. But I don't think the church was minded that way. I look at the organization now and I go, do they even care if someone new comes in?
Yeah. Well, I've certainly made the assertion that they don't. And they haven't in a very long time. I mean, the last time there was a realistic international marketing campaign that mattered, that actually, made a difference to Scientology and was noticeable, besides a Super Bowl ad. I'm talking about a campaign.
Yeah.
Was in the 80s.
Yeah.
With the Dianetics.
Right, and that's what
that stopped by the mid 80s.
Right, but even that wasn't paid for by the individual little churches. That was paid for at an international level.
Well, exactly.
And they were already bypassing at that point.
Fair enough.
And that's what I pointed out, and I was like, people looked at me like I had no idea what I was talking about.
Yeah, interesting. So, okay, well, thank you very much for sharing all of that. And next time we will talk about your experience as a post-staff public.
Okay, cool.
All right, cool. Hey, everyone. I have very good news. What I'm announcing here is the culmination of 2 years of work on my part to expose Scientology and give you the actual facts about what really goes on behind its closed doors. I've completed and published what I believe to be the definitive guide to Dianetics and Scientology, titled Scientology A to Xenu, an insider's guide to what Scientology is all about. Why should you get this and read it? Well, if you want to understand how people are lured into destructive cults like this and why they stay, this book gives you those answers. If you want to know what Scientologists really believe and why they're willing to cash in their children's college funds, take out second and third mortgages, and even forsake family and friends, this book gives you those answers. If you want to understand why Scientology has amassed so much money and power, and why it seems that the police and the courts are powerless to stop them, those answers are in here as well. Was L. Ron Hubbard serious about Dianetics and Scientology, or was it all just some big con job from the very start? What did he really believe? Why did he start Scientology, and despite all his wealth and power, why did he die alone and afraid? Finally, everyone has heard that Scientology believes in space aliens and some guy named Xenu, and we've all seen South Park. But is that the whole story? Not even close. There's a lot more to know about why Scientologists think they're saving the world, and I break it all down piece by piece. I believe you will not find a simpler and more complete explanation of Scientology's confidential scriptures anywhere else. My own personal story is in here and in more detail than I've ever discussed before. How I grew up in Scientology, why I started working for them, and eventually joined the Sea Organization, and what happened exactly that made me come to my senses and get out. All of that is just chapter 1. For anyone who seriously wants to understand Scientology, you cannot do it without this book. It comes with a complete glossary of terms and an organizing chart so you can see the Scientology hierarchy and how it all works. It comes in paperback and as an ebook. I'm currently recording it as an audiobook as well. Buy it at the CreateSpace e-store or on Amazon today. I've put links to both in the description below. To all my fans and subscribers, thank you so much for your support over these past 2 years. You have made this possible. Believe me when I tell you, this is just the beginning. Stay tuned because a lot more is coming in this new year. Thank you for watching.